They told me I was getting a promotion. What they didn't tell me was that I'd be spending the next 3 weeks training the CEO's daughter to take my job. And when I finally figured out what was happening, security escorted me out of the building like I was a criminal. But here's the thing, they had no idea what I'd been documenting for the past 2 years. I spent 8 years building my career at Henderson Financial Solutions. 8 years of 60-hour weeks, missed holidays, and sacrificed relationships. I started as an entry-level analyst fresh out of college, and I clawed my way up to senior operations manager through sheer determination and results that spoke for themselves. My department consistently outperformed every other division in the company. Last fiscal year alone, my team saved the company $2.3 million through process improvements I designed and implemented. I had awards on my desk, glowing performance reviews in my file, letters of commendation from clients who specifically requested to work with my team. So when my boss, Regional Director Patricia Vaughn, called me into her office on a Tuesday morning with that plastic smile she reserved for board members, I genuinely believed my moment had finally arrived. "Megan," she said, gesturing to the leather chair across from her mahogany desk, "I wanted to personally tell you some exciting news. We're restructuring the operations division, and leadership has been watching your performance very closely." My heart was pounding. I'd been passed over twice before, once for a lateral hire, once for someone's nephew who lasted exactly 4 months before spectacularly flaming out, but this time felt different. "We're creating a new Director of Operations Excellence position," Patricia continued, "and you're the obvious choice to help shape this role." I must have beamed like an idiot. Director level. Finally. "There's just one thing," she added, and I noticed her eyes didn't quite need mine. "Given the complexity of your current responsibilities, we need to ensure a smooth transition. We're bringing in someone to shadow you for a few weeks, learn the ropes from the best, you know?" That seemed reasonable. More than reasonable. It was flattering. "Her name is Brittany Wells. She's very eager to learn from you." Brittany Wells. The name didn't ring any bells, but I agreed enthusiastically. I even offered to create a comprehensive training manual. Patricia's smile tightened almost imperceptibly, but she nodded and told me Brittany would start the following Monday. I should have Googled her. I should have done my due diligence, but I was too busy floating on clouds, already mentally drafting my acceptance speech for the promotion I was certain was coming. Brittany arrived that Monday morning in head-to-toe designer everything. Gucci loafers, Hermes scarf, a Cartier watch that probably cost more than my car. She couldn't have been older than 24, and she carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no in her entire privileged life. "Oh my God, you must be Megan," she squealed, like we were sorority sisters reuniting. "Patricia told me you're like literally the smartest person in this whole building. I'm so excited to learn from you." I smiled and showed her to the empty desk in my office. I started explaining our systems, our processes, the delicate relationships I'd cultivated with our most demanding clients over the years. Brittany took notes. Lots of notes. She asked surprisingly good questions, and she photographed everything. My organizational charts, my workflow diagrams, my contact lists. "For reference," she explained sweetly, "I'm such a visual learner." 2 weeks in, things started feeling off. Brittany was taking meetings without me. She was CC'd on emails I wasn't included in, and she'd started introducing herself to clients as the incoming Director of Operations Excellence. I told myself I was being paranoid. The promotion announcement was probably coming any day. They probably wanted Brittany fully trained before making it official. Then I overheard the conversation that shattered everything. I was walking past the executive conference room when I heard Patricia's voice through the slightly open door. "Don't worry, Richard. 3 more weeks and Brittany will be fully trained. Megan has no idea she's essentially writing her own termination papers." A man's voice, deep, authoritative, responded with a chuckle. "My daughter's always been a quick study, and this way we avoid any messy, wrongful termination claims. She trained her replacement voluntarily." Her daughter. Richard Wells, our CEO. Brittany Wells was the CEO's daughter, and I was training her to take my job, the job I'd built from nothing, the job I'd sacrificed everything for, the job they dangled in front of me like a carrot while sharpening the knife behind their backs. I stood frozen in that hallway, my coffee growing cold in my trembling hands. 8 years. 8 years of loyalty, and they were throwing me away like yesterday's garbage to make room for nepotism wrapped in Hermes silk. But here's the thing about me. I don't just roll over. I never have. I went back to my desk with a new plan forming in my mind. What Patricia and Richard didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I'd been quietly documenting everything problematic I'd witnessed at Henderson Financial for the past 2 years. The falsified expense reports, the discriminatory hiring practices, the safety violations that HR buried, the hostile work environment complaints that mysteriously disappeared. I'd started the file after watching them railroad my colleague Marcus out of the company for reporting racial discrimination. I'd watched them gaslight and manipulate good people for years, and I'd kept records because some part of me always knew my turn would come. Now it had. Okay, I need to pause here because this is where I made a decision that changed everything. Should I have just quietly walked away? Maybe, but would you? 8 years of your life stolen, your replacement photographing all your work while smiling in your face. Subscribe if you think I had every right to fight back, and tell me in the comments, what would you have done with those 2 years of documentation? Because what I did next, let's just say they really shouldn't have underestimated me. I spent the next 3 days acting completely normal. I smiled at Brittany. I answered her questions. I continued my comprehensive training like nothing had changed. But every night, I went home and organized my files. I cross-referenced dates. I gathered corroborating evidence. I contacted former employees who'd been wrongfully terminated. I built an airtight case. On Thursday afternoon, I requested a meeting with Patricia. I told her I wanted to discuss the timeline for my transition to the director position. She agreed, probably thinking she'd finally have to come up with some creative excuse for why the promotion wasn't happening. I walked into her office with a USB drive in my pocket and a recording app running on my phone, perfectly legal in my one-party consent state. "Patricia," I said, calmly, sitting down across from her, "I know Brittany is Richard Wells' daughter. I know you're planning to terminate me once she's fully trained, and I know you've been telling her I'm voluntarily stepping aside." Her face went white. Actually white, like someone had drained all the blood from her body. "Megan, I don't know what you think you heard. I heard you and Richard discussing it in the conference room. I heard you say I was writing my own termination papers. I have contemporaneous notes with timestamps." Patricia's jaw tightened. "Even if that were true, which it isn't, you're an at-will employee. We can terminate you for any reason or no reason at all." "You're right," I agreed. "You absolutely can. But you can't terminate me in retaliation for reporting discrimination and fraud. And you definitely can't commit securities violations, which is exactly what's going to happen when the SEC finds out about those falsified quarterly reports from 2022. I watched her face cycle through about 6 emotions in 3 seconds. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot, just a preview of the documentation I'd compiled. Expense reports with altered numbers, emails discussing how to adjust the figures before the audit, names, dates, amounts. Patricia's hand shot toward her desk phone. "I'm calling security." "Go ahead," I said, standing up. "But know this. I have copies of everything stored in multiple secure locations. I have a meeting scheduled with a lawyer tomorrow morning, and I have contacts at 3 different news outlets who'd love a story about how Henderson Financial Solutions treats its loyal employees while the CEO installs his unqualified daughter in a senior position." I was bluffing about the news contacts, but she didn't know that. Security arrived 4 minutes later, 2 massive men in ill-fitting blazers who looked genuinely uncomfortable as Patricia shrieked at them to escort this woman out immediately. They handed me a cardboard box for my personal items. Brittany watched from across the office, her designer-clad arms crossed, looking smug. "You know," I said, loudly enough for the entire floor to hear, "if you're going to steal someone's job, you should probably make sure they don't have 8 years of documentation proving your company's systematic corruption." I walked out of Henderson Financial Solutions for the last time with my head held high and absolutely no regrets. The following week, my lawyer filed a wrongful termination suit, citing retaliation. We also filed a complaint with the Department of Labor regarding the safety violations and a separate complaint with the SEC regarding the financial discrepancies. The story got picked up by a local business journalist, not through my contacts, but because one of the former employees I'd reached out to had her own axe to grind and her own documentation to share. Within a month, Henderson Financial was under investigation by multiple agencies. Patricia was fired. Not restructured or transitioned, fired, with cause, after an internal review revealed she'd been covering up complaints for years. Brittany lasted exactly 6 weeks in my former position before the board quietly removed her during the crisis management phase. Apparently, she'd made some very expensive mistakes that would have been caught immediately by anyone who actually understood the job. Richard Wells is currently facing a personal lawsuit from shareholders and an SEC investigation that could result in significant fines, or worse. And me? I took a month off to decompress. I spent time with my family. I remembered what it felt like to not check my work email at midnight. Then I got a call from a competitor. They'd seen the news coverage. They knew my reputation. They offered me a position, Director of Operations, with a significant raise and a signing bonus. I started last month. My new boss specifically mentioned that she valued loyalty and ethical behavior above all else. When I told her I'd need to take a few days off for my lawyer meetings regarding the ongoing cases against Henderson, she told me to take whatever time I needed. Companies that treat people the way they treated you deserve everything that's coming to them, she said. I couldn't agree more. Looking back, I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I never overheard that conversation. Would I have figured it out eventually? Would I have just quietly accepted my termination, too beaten down to fight back? Maybe, but I'm grateful I'll never know. Because here's what 8 years at a toxic company taught me. Document everything. Trust your instincts, and never, ever underestimate a woman who has absolutely nothing left to lose. They thought they could use me and discard me. They thought I'd go quietly. They were wrong. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you've ever dealt with a toxic boss, workplace betrayal, or corporate gaslighting, I want you to know you're not alone and you deserve so much better. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you have your own workplace horror story you want to share, submit it for a chance to be featured in an upcoming video. Your story matters. I'll see you in the next one.